it's like when I got my first speaking gig, which launched my, expert, let's call it my expert authority sort of business. And mate, I'd been speaking in front of the mirror. I'd been writing speeches. I'd been preparing for that speech. So before you have your first footy game, you've been preparing, playing footy for weeks and months to prepare for that, right? So one of the best sayings I love is when people say you're lucky, I said, you bet. Because luck to me is simply when preparedness meets opportunity. Mate, I was prepared like a motherfucker, and I had the opportunity presented, and I took it and ran with it.
You're currently listening to my man, Brett Campbell. He's a serial entrepreneur, author. He's been published in over 200 publications. He's a global speaker, and he can be seen on Australia's #1 mainstream business channel, sharing his expertise. I'm excited about this conversation, guys. Let's get this thing started. Let's get after it. This is Your Superior Self, episode 85. Unleash your greatness with global speaker Brett Campbell. Life gets so much easier once you decide to play your own game. Don't just try to be better. Be different. And that excerpt was taken from the book Creative Calling by Chase Jarvis. And it is a monumental quote. I think there is so much noise out there that sounds the same. And a lot of influencers and a lot of people are trying to do the same thing, get noticed, have a voice, and it just is white noise at this point. And this book has really inspired me to get back to the basics of being a content creator, as a podcaster, as an artist, to build and fine-tune my creativity in ways that I never thought that I could, and being honest with myself and putting my honest art out there and expecting nothing, having no expectations, just putting it out for people to enjoy. And it's freed me in so many different ways, because I feel like we really put stuff out there just for the likes and the dopamine hits in our minds. And that is not sustainable. That is not sustainable at all, because you're not going to be able to fulfill that need, that selfish want from the ego. What you need to work on is working that muscle in your mind that is in charge of the creativity, to build that up, because it overflows in different aspects of your life. It goes into your business, it goes into your personal life, whatever it may be, but it overflows in all aspects of your life, and you become very creative in decision making and more thoughtful, more, it helps you with problem solving, it helps you with making decisions, it helps you in so many different ways. It's just crazy. It's like, and I'm seeing those, and I'm feeling so re-energized from this book. So I highly suggest that you guys go pick it up. And when it comes to creating content, creating art, stand out. Like, do what you want to do. Like, show more of yourself. Dig deeper into yourself and display that, because everyone's saying the same message, it feels like, on Facebook and on social media platforms. And it's just, like I said earlier, it's white noise at this point, but we're all different in how we're made up as a human. And to display that difference in whatever art you're creating, that's what's going to make you stand out. That's what's going to gain you followers. That's what's going to gain you recognition, is what makes you different from everyone else. So I'm excited about today's episode. I'm fired up. I'm really enjoying the art of this, the art by audio, the process, what it takes for me to be creative, the work. I'm really enjoying it and just taking my time and letting it flow. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, because it was fun to make. So So what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Your Superior Self. Today, hold on real quick. This dog just literally just started barking.
Great timing.
I mean, good God, she is quiet.
You gotta keep that in, man. You gotta keep that in.
What's up, guys? Today I'm joined with Brett Campbell. He's a serial entrepreneur, author, motivational speaker. Brett, what's going on, brother? How are you, and what are you up to today?
Mate, I'm doing absolutely fantastic. Thank you for asking. And what am I up to today? I'm currently looking out of my office, and it's an absolute shambles at the moment. We've just moved into our new facility 2 weeks ago. We had a whole heap of new furniture arrive. We're getting it created at the moment, and all things are coming together. So, mate, I love a little bit of chaos, organized chaos, of course. I think it's what keeps me on the straight and narrow.
Absolutely, man. You got to have that chaos, that kind of that storm. It makes you feel alive, especially when everything feels to be like when it starts to feeling like everything is too organized. Like you need that chaos to kind of balance the spectrum a little bit.
Certainly do. It brings perspective, which is everything.
So tell us more about you. Like you founded two companies, fast-growing companies, Fit International and Campbell Media. What was that like, one, and what did you do before?
Yeah, so I mean, just to give a little bit of clarity around that, two of Australia's fastest growing companies in their respective fields at their time. So they're quite different in nature and delivery and output, but very, very similar in the way in which they were created, let's call it. So the first company, like you said, Fit International, that was 11 years ago, when I had this entrepreneurial burning desire within inside of myself to do something where I got kicked out of high school, the old typical story. So, grew up in a very poor neighborhood, very little going around. Got kicked out of high school, not because I was a bad student or I was a bad kid. It was just because I talked too much and I couldn't sit still, which really is interesting now to look back at that. But again, I was a lost boy, fell into a trade, became a cabinet maker. I knew from day one that was not what I was put on this planet to do, but I stuck it out for 5 years. However, in that's probably where I had some of the biggest personal growth I've ever experienced in my life through that phase and everything that I learned. But 11 years ago, stuck into really going, you know what, I've had enough of this, right? And I know a lot of people can relate to this, especially if you're in that entrepreneurial sort of mindset where you might currently be in a job or you're doing something that you've got this earning for something more. And for me, it was just to the point where I had to make some drastic moves. And for me, it was jumping on an airplane, moving to another country where I knew no one, to start a brand new life and this quest of finding out who the heck is Brett Campbell. At the time, again, doing the best with what I had, I decided, I'm going to become a personal trainer. So I started working at a gym and started training clients and becoming pretty good at it. It wasn't hard for me to get clients. What I got kicked out of high school for really helped me in creating a full book of personal training clients. I had the ability to communicate and talk with people and understand them on the level that they need to be understood at. And then, of course, that wasn't enough for me. The burning desire was still bigger, and I couldn't figure it out. And long story short, went on to build a fitness franchise. We had 35 locations when we launched in the first 6 months. We had hundreds of people applying to own a franchise, and we had a fitness college where we were then figuring out, going, well, how do we build this franchise even better and bigger and faster? And we're like, well, why don't we just create personal trainers? So we had an education arm to the business, but it all started from this. One day I was walking outside to go and train clients on my way back to the gym, and I walked past my roommate, and I walked past her computer, and I seen a PDF document on the screen. I was like, well, what is that? There was a picture of a guy standing, and then right next to it was a picture of him squatting. And I was like, looks like he's doing a squat. She goes, yeah, he is. It's a workout program. I just bought it. It's $37. I'm like, holy shit. Right? I was like, whoa. The big epiphany, and people go, when was that exact moment? There's not many of those exact moments in life, I don't think, but this one for me was a significant defining moment where I was like, wow, how did this guy do this? I need to find out, and I'm going to do every single thing in my power to make this happen. So I became obsessed with, online marketing and digital marketing and social media and trying to figure this thing out. So, to date, we've sold hundreds of thousands of, online products and services. And that sort of led into the next business that I'm, and now our fitness company is still operating. But, for me now running Campbell Media Group, which is Australia's fastest growing digital growth agency. In our first year, we took out 2018 Best Social Media Agency of the Year award in Australia and New Zealand. So it was a really nice accolade for the team and everything that we're doing and results that we're achieving, etc. So that's where I am sitting today, and we've just moved into our, like I just said, into our brand new 500 square meter office, and super excited about what's next to come.
There's so much in there that I want to unpack, but you talked about the moment where you're walking past the computer and saw the price of a certain package, but I want to know, like, what was the actual moment? Like, you were a cabinet maker, like what? I mean, you said the first day you knew that this wasn't for you, but like, what was it? What was the exact moment that was like, I'm out of here, peace out, I'm getting on a plane? Like, what was that?
Yeah, I'd be lying to you if I could try and distill it down into one moment for that scenario, and that's why when I said, I had this defining moment with that workout program, because it really was. It was a flip of the switch. When I was a cabinet maker, I knew from day one that I wasn't meant to do what I was doing. But one thing that I've always had instilled in me, and I'm not really sure where I've got this from, to be honest, because I grew up with it without a father, ended up with having a stepfather though, who became my father. But I'm the polar opposite of my mother and my stepfather. They don't have an entrepreneurial bone in their body. They're the typical get a job, stay in the job, and when you retire, you get your superannuation if it hasn't bottomed out, right?
Yeah, they love security, right? They love security.
Of course. And for me, I just had massive resistance towards that, and I didn't know why. And so everything that I've always done, I've always tried my best and always wanted to be the best, and not to be the best to be better than other people, but to be the best version of myself. Like in my early days, as a young man, and a young boy growing up, it came across as like, why do you always have to try and be the best, and at the expense of other people? But that was never the motivating driver. I love being beaten at things, because it opens up this, wow, there's so much more I need to learn, right? So like, for example, like right now, in our new office, right, we're about a team of 20 at the moment, and I'm like the second best at table tennis, so ping pong, right? And there's someone better than me, and I love that. I love that challenge. Like in my head, I'm like, I'm going to go get some lessons. I'm going to train, because there's always that. It's uplifting, right? But back to the cabinet making side of it. From day one, I knew that it wasn't what I meant to do, but I didn't have any other options at that time. Again, I want to make sure I frame this properly. We always have options, but I didn't think. And I didn't feel that I had any options, right? So that's a total different conversation.
Well, I'm sure you were pretty young, right? Like this wasn't like
I was 16.
16 years old, yeah. I mean, you're very early on in your life. I'm sure. Was there a mentor or something at that stage in your life? I think it's 16, man. Like I didn't know what.
So
I
didn't.
To do. I still don't.
This was the thing, right? This was the thing. I didn't have any mentors until I went into this cabinet making factory, and from day one, I said to the boss as he was walking me around this factory, I said to him, who's the best in here? Who's the best cabinet maker in here? Who gets paid the most money in here, right? And he goes, it's Baz. And I said, cool. Well, I'm going to go and hang out around Baz and do everything I can for Baz, so Baz can, and at the time, I had no concept of mentor or coach or anything like that, right? So, you have to look at it from that lens of, I just felt like I wanted to be around someone, because I didn't have any big brothers. I had a bigger sister, and at that sort of early, our relationship's amazing right now, but in the early days, she didn't want me around her friends, and, because I was that class clown joker kid, and her friends laughed and, all of that sort of stuff. But for me, I really didn't have any mentors at all, but I had this, gravitational pull towards trying to find one without me really knowing, right? So, I said to the boss, who's the person? He said, it's Baz. And I said, cool, I'm going to go and learn from Baz. He goes, nah, don't do that. Baz actually hates apprentices. And I'm like, oh, shit. I said, well, who else is in? He goes, oh, there's Ty or George. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll go and learn from them, but I will also do my very best to try and make sure I can get in with Baz. And like literally, I would at least every couple of days I'd go up to Baz. Like put it this way, Baz had the cleanest workstation and cleanest floor area around his table where he worked than anyone in the factory. Why? Because I fucking cleaned it, right? I cleaned it, and I made sure he noticed I was there. And every couple of days I'd say, hey, Baz, have you got any jobs for me? Have you got any jobs for me? Other than cleaning and, sharpening his chisel or something like that. Even he didn't really even want that to happen because most apprentices, because he'd had a bad experience with apprentices, right? So he'd been there the longest. He was the most experienced, hands down the best. And he'd had obviously a lot of bad experiences. So it could have been easy for me to go, well, he's a bad experiences. I'm just going to stay away from him. But I was like, I want to see if there's any opportunity, right? Again, I'm always trying to push the envelope. And so apprentices in the cabinet making world, like for the first 6 months, you're not even really allowed to pick up a battery drill or a drill, or, you're not on any tools. You're just a glorified cleaning technician, right? So I would say to Baz, hey, have you got any jobs for me? You got any jobs for me? So the first jobs for apprentices when they did get on the tools was, making the drawers for kitchens, right? So just screwing a square box together, putting on a bottom, putting on some rails. And that would be the apprentice's job for, at least probably 6 months until they sort of can now start building cabinets. So I remember, I was up to Baz again. Got to a point where he told me to F off, and he goes, mate, stop effing annoying me, And then one day I just said, hey, mate, you got any jobs for me? Just jokingly trying to be a smart ass. And he's like, actually, here you go. And he gave me a trolley, and it had a set of drawers. He goes, this will be your one and only opportunity. If you fuck it up, you're never going to do anything for me again. I said, mate, there's no way I'm going to fuck this up, right? So I went away. Started to screw the drawers together. I take the trolley back once the drawers are all complete, and I said, here you go, mate. And he looked at them, he picked it up, and he's like, wow. He goes, this is actually pretty good. The boxes were square. There was no screws out the side, which was a typical apprentice thing. They didn't know how to drill straight. And I was like, he goes, how do you know how to do it? How do you know how to do it so well? You haven't even been doing this. I said, do you want to know? He goes, yeah, of course I want to effing know. I was okay, well, when I'm not cleaning up, right, when I'm not cleaning up and being a bitch for everyone and running across the road to get the left-handed screwdriver, right, I'm out in the skip with a battery drill practicing how to drill straight. I'm screwing pieces of timber together because I'm waiting, so when I get my opportunity, I'm ready to pounce. And dude, when I got those drawers, he goes, they're the best set of drawers an apprentice has made. And then straight away he goes, here you go. Do you reckon you can go and build this cabinet? I said, you bet I can. And I took the trolley, went over, set up my own workbench, right, which was unheard of. An apprentice never had their own workbench. So I'm setting up my own workbench, and my boss comes out. He walks out, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing on the tools? Who the hell told you to do that? And I said, oh, you might want to go speak to Baz. And you could just see he was like, what the heck? So he went and spoke to Baz. They were talking, and then the boss was like, cool. And then about a month later, he gave me my very first kitchen. Here's the kitchen. You think you're good? Go and build this entire kitchen. And I did, and I became the fastest or the only apprentice in the 30-year history of the business to be signed off their apprenticeship a year earlier than what it actually took. And that broke every rule and fundamental rule about apprenticeships, right? So generally you got to spend 4 years, 8,000 hours. I was signed off in about 2.5 years. And the real lesson there is not how good Brett is. It's what was I prepared to do and what was I doing in preparation for game day when I got that opportunity. Because I tell you what, if I had to stuff those drawers up, I probably would have taken 8 years to finish the apprenticeship, right?
So you have to stay ready, right? Like you can't, you have to be prepared every day. Like, so you go home, you put in the work, you bust your ass, you put those fucking drawers together every night, and you practice and you practice and you practice. So when your opportunity comes, you're ready to go. You're game ready. You're game time ready. Plug and play.
Before I made my first drawer, I already made 100 drawers, right? it's like when I got my first speaking gig, which launched my, expert, let's call it my expert authority sort of business. And mate, I'd been speaking in front of the mirror. I'd been writing speeches. I'd been preparing for that speech. So before you have your first footy game, you've been preparing, playing footy for weeks and months to prepare for that, right? So one of the best sayings I love is when people say you're lucky, I said, you bet. Because luck to me is simply when preparedness meets opportunity. Mate, I was prepared like a motherfucker and I had the opportunity presented and I took it and ran with it.
You know what's funny is that I've had this interview already like 10 times today. Me just practicing for this, right? So
There you go.
you're exactly right. Like I have these conversations because I want to be a speaker. I'm inspired by getting on a stage and looking out and seeing people look at me and they want to get fired up. They want to gain something from my story. And it fucking fires me up because it's like not many people can do this. What's the number one fear in the world? Fucking public speaking. And I want to tackle that. I want to make that fear my bitch. And the only way that I'm going to make it, the only way I'm going to conquer that is to practice, like you're saying here, like daily, every day. Speak in the mirror on the drive to work. Speak to myself. Practice. Record it. Listen to it. Listen to the ums. Listen to the uhs, and try to eliminate those. The stuttering. I mean, you're not going to be perfect, but I think I can get it to the point where my passion will definitely be on display, and my story will make sense. And I don't know, like your story resonates big time with me, and I know it does with my audience because it's like we're the same, right? Like even though you're in Australia and I'm in the States, it's the same shit, right? You got to work
No,
your.
we
You gotta,
still breathe oxygen.
yeah,
We've
yeah.
still got blood running through our veins, and at the core of it, and something that you said there that I'd love to just sort of jump on for a second, because I hear this a lot, right? For me, when I hear public speaking is the number one fear, like that's like you telling me that the moon is a triangle. Like I'm like, what the? I just do not at the conscious level, I just like do not understand how that even is. And I've dug into that and I've looked into that and I've researched. And public speaking, and this is the thing where, let's call it for the last probably 4 years, I've been obsessed with, language and words that people use because, words are the most powerful thing on this entire planet. They start and end wars, right? And when people say it's a fear of public speaking, it's not a fear of public speaking. People don't fear public speaking. They fear judgment of what someone might think of them when they're up there. That's a totally different fear, man. That you're not scared of speaking, right? It's not public speaking because you would speak in a group of your friends. That's public speaking. Standing on a stage, it's just the same. You're using the same art, but it's what underlies that. What's the underlying thing that's really stopping? Because if you're telling yourself a false narrative that, other people say, yeah, I'm scared of public speaking. No, you're not. You're never going to be able to solve it because you're actually not admitting to yourself the actual fear.
They're scared of failure. They're scared that they're going to get up there, stumble on the words, look like an asshole, and
which is the fear of someone judging you.
Yeah.
So it's not about missing words, because if missing words was popular, it'd be cool to miss words. Like, I don't give a shit if I mess words up and say the wrong thing, and I quite often do. I say the wrong words, and I'm like, that's not even a word, is it? And they're like, no. I'm like, oh, oops, what's another word for that then? Because I don't have any fear of judgment. Right? It's got nothing to do with public speaking.
But it's also like a point, like making yourself vulnerable to that, right? Like making yourself vulnerable to not giving a fuck. Like, I mean, when I say that, it's kind of like maybe I'm messing that definition up, but it's like the way that I view it is I want to make myself vulnerable to the point where I am going to let my emotions run through my speech or let myself come through the purest way that I can, right? And I don't care what anybody says. I don't care about what people are going to judge me, how they're going to judge me. I don't care for that. I'm going to tell my story the way that it is. I'm going to tell my story the best way that I can, and I'm going to inspire a bunch of people. And what do you think about that? I mean, that's
authenticity trumps whatever words you say. Like authenticity, being authentic, knowing and feeling, right? We are vibrations, right? Let's start from there. We're vibrations, and we all vibrate on a specific frequency. When we're in pure harmony and equilibrium from a vibrational perspective, mate, it's just this utopian feeling, right down to the nucleus of source, or whatever you want to call it, right? You know, when you're hanging out with a mate or you're talking, or, you know, like we're having this conversation right now, like I'm vibing right now because this dialogue is what I love. I feel it palpating through my body, right? And when you're on a specific vibration, magic happens, right? And when someone's not being authentic, the vibration is so far off, you can smell it, right? You can smell someone's, you know, unauthentism. It's not even a word. See, I did it. But it sounds like it should be a word. We should probably put that in the dictionary.
Absolutely.
But you can smell it when someone's not being authentic, right? And some of the best speeches I've ever seen, or someone on stage, hasn't been the best speaker. You know, it's not the best story. It's the way in which you feel when you hear and see that person doing what they're doing. Right. So it's that whole concept, and Brene Brown, I heard it from her for her first, right? She's obviously in a league of her own with the concept around vulnerability. And just as a side note, if you haven't seen the new Netflix special with her, it's amazing. She's absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I just bought her book, and I did watch that Netflix episode.
Yeah.
I actually just reached out to her and been corresponding with her her team over there about trying to get her on the show.
Yeah, whoever wrote that special, such a great mix of comic relief, but also what needed to be said. But, you know, I heard her say many years ago was, what makes you vulnerable makes you beautiful, right? And man, when I heard that, I was like, holy shit, that is so true. And I've tried to break that in so many ways and go, oh, but what about this? What about that? And it's like, man, what makes you vulnerable makes you beautiful. You know, like as a boy growing up, and this is a big stigma right now, and I think we're becoming a lot more progressive with it, men especially. But you know, we're growing up to not cry, stop being a pussy, you know, man up, be hard. You know, some of the common phrases that get thrown at a young man, it's like to show your emotion and to wear your heart on your sleeve is a tough thing, you know. Is a tough thing, and for me, the days, and I've generally always been a heart on the sleeve type kind of guy, you know. But the entering into the entrepreneurial journey for me, you know, you build some thick skin, and you've got to wear your heart on the sleeve at the right times, you know, or else you'll get walked over in the world of business. But I think when you can really tap into that and you know, so like when you know you're being you 100%, everyone feels it, man. Everyone feels it.
No, I agree. I mean, I could feel you right now. Like I feel like we're on the same vibe because I think we have the same values. I think we both want to be the best versions of ourselves. We both want to help others achieve that. I think that the biggest, I wouldn't say biggest problem, but it is trying to wake them up, right? Like how do you, and the best way that I can explain my story is that, you know, Plato's allegory of the cave, where the guy escapes from it and then realizes there's another world out there, and then returns to tell his boys that, hey, look, that shadow and shit on the wall is not real. There's a whole different world outside of here, and it's badass. You need to come out here. But to explain that to them and show them and to convince them that there is a different world out there and that this shit right here is not real. Like, how do you wake people up to the fact that they can create their own success? They can create a better life for themselves. They have to change their mindset.
Yeah, there's probably two parts to that, and something I didn't mention in the business side of things in my progression. In between creating our fitness company and our digital growth agency now, I created another company called Unleash Your Greatness, which is all about living to your full potential and living it right now, which coincides, you know, I've written a book called Right Now, meaning, man, we ain't got there's no better time than right now to start doing what you need to do to become the person you need to become to live the life that you want to live, right? And so that I started that business purely out of something significant happened in my life. I had a death of a very close friend of mine. I watched her pass away in front of me. Horrific story, but it was the wake-up call. Unfortunately yet fortunately, was the wake-up call for me to do something about waking myself up, because before you can wake anyone else up, man, you need to wake yourself up, right? And I believe there's too many people out there trying to wake people up when they're not even fucking woke themselves, right? So if we look at that and we go, well, what does woke even mean, right? That's probably a starting point.
I like that word a lot, woke.
Yeah, because you can wake up, but it don't mean you're woke. You can walk around and fucking sleepwalk, right? When people get up in the morning, that their brain hasn't started till 10 a.m. or after they've had 5 coffees, it's like, man, you're certainly not woke, right? You're not aware. You're not seeing what's on display here. And
well, a lot of people want to be like people on Facebook, right? Like you watch people on Facebook, it seems like every fucking body has like this selfie going on, this video about how they're inspiring others. It's like Tony Robbins' message removed 3 times on Facebook. It's like, but you can tell like the people that are like legit and have their own shit going on, right? Like they have that vibe. They have they're woke. They are legit. They are authentic. I mean, but and you're in. I didn't mean to cut you off, but like, I just feel cool. Like it resonates. Everything that you're saying resonates with me, because it's like, to stay awake, it's hard, right? Because you have to keep working on yourself. I think like, to wake up and realize where you're at in your life and to keep that up, to keep that self-development up is hard.
Well, you use the analogy of, if you're on the airplane, this old chestnut, before you can help anyone else, you got to help yourself, right? Before you can help anyone, and I know why people do it, because guess what? I was the guy. I remember I went to my first personal development workshop, and then I flew back home to see my parents, and I was sitting there and I was telling my stepdad how he should be living his life, and he's like, son, don't come back here and give me your fucking psycho babble bullshit. And I'm like, what? Like, I was hurt. I was like, whoa. But once I ate the humble pie, I was like, hold on a minute. I've been to one workshop. I've heard a few cool lines. I feel inspired, and I'm out here trying to spruik this, right? So I get it. I understand. And there'll be people listening to this going, oh, man. At that moment, I sort of felt like a fake expert or a fake motivational, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I still wanted to help people. Right, I don't think this conversation happens enough. I think there's a lot of ear bashing out there. And don't get me wrong, I sort of have my little flares of, a coach is a coach before they've even done anything, all of that stuff. But I understand, because I was that guy. I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to teach people how to build a fitness business before I even had a fitness business. Right, I wanted to teach people how to grow a big company before I've actually even built one. Right, so I get that. I understand that, but we need to make sure we're staying in our same lane. Like when you watch an amazing movie, you tell your friends. I watched an amazing Netflix special last night, When They See Us, right, about the 5 kids in 1989 in Harlem who literally got done over by the police and the government for they were charged with murder and rape of a white woman running through a park, right? I was watching that and I was just like, it was so compelling to me that I came in our morning huddle today with the team. I'm like, hey guys, I watched this movie. It was blah, 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 blah. Highly recommend watching it. Right. So Netflix didn't reach out to me and go, hey Brett, can you please promote this? I felt compelled to promote it. Right. I felt compelled to promote it. When you learn something that shifts a gear inside of you mentally, you feel compelled. So I get it. Right. I get it. Like when you hear something amazing, you're like, I'm going to tell my friends this. You know what? Actually, I want to run a business because this is what my life's purpose is all about. Okay. But it's really being able to stop and being aware and going, hold on a minute. Do you just know a few things? Right. And most life coaches out there right now know enough to be dangerous. Right. They know enough to be dangerous. But they also need to know enough to be aware that, hey, currently right now, you need to stay within your lane, inside what you do know. I've run a personal development event. We had a couple hundred people in there, quite a smallish type of event. And one of the ladies I was talking with and we were having dialogue with in front of everyone, she just went into this massive panic attack and started shaking, and the entire audience was like flipping out, right? she was going to a place that she hadn't visited for a long time. And anyway, I walk up and I diffuse the situation. I work it through and help her through, and she has an amazing breakthrough, right? Now, imagine if you didn't have the ability or the self-awareness or the tools in the toolbox to be able to navigate that situation. I see so many coaches out there who are inspired to help, and I get it. Once again, I was that guy. I wanted to help people before I knew how to help. But you're opening up a chasm and leading people down a garden path that you may not be able to help someone get back out of, right? You might make things worse in their life. So I definitely think that I don't even know how we got onto that topic, but
that's great though. I think that's we talked about Facebook and how we see a lot of people on there trying to mimic some famous coaches. But like, all right, so let's say that I'm a coach starting out. I've been to a conference. I'm inspired and I want to help. Like, where should I go next to keep developing my career?
Cool. So can I put that question on hold, because I know I didn't answer your question earlier, and it was how do you wake people up? Right. Yeah. And this is the other distinction to that. Other than creating a monumental amounts of content and getting out there and being every single place that you could possibly be, option one. Or option two is, why are you trying to wake everyone up? Why don't you, when people want to be woken up, you help them become woke, right? That's a different. So for me now, I have sort of, I'd rather spend 95% of my energy helping people who want to be woke, right? Not people who are walking around aimlessly with no intention, no concept of even wanting to make a change, because that's a total different dialogue. It's a total different conversation. It's a total different level of fulfillment, right? And I use the analogy, like when I was a kid, living in a bad neighborhood, my mum didn't let us out, after 7 p.m., even in daylight savings. And it was in New Zealand at the time, it wouldn't get dark till like 9 p.m. But here I am, 7 p.m. I'm looking through my window. I'm about 10 years old. I'm looking through my bedroom window when, we're supposed to go to bed at like 7:30 and all the kids were playing out in the street. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I really wanted to be out there. They weren't knocking on my door saying, come out, Brett, come out, right? I had a desire to get out there. So there's a difference of when you meet someone and you can help someone who actually wants to be helped, significantly changes. Now, if you want to go and wake up the entire world and save 7 billion people's lives, then the way to do that is be everywhere and be the living, eating, breathing, sleeping version of what it needs to be in order to make that happen. So sorry, mate, back to that second question, the question that you just asked there that I sort of put on ice.
No, I like that, because I was at a conference not too long ago called CadreCon with Seth Godin came and he talked, and he gave a interpretation of a reading that I asked. I asked him a question about using our gifts to change the world, and he was like, well, I didn't mean the entire world. I meant your world. I meant the people that are directly affected by you. You need to use your gifts for your world, because you can directly affect those. To try to change the world and try to change the people that are on Facebook, like, that's impossible. That is a fool's errand.
Yeah.
I think that we should use our gifts daily to affect the people. And I agree with Seth. The people that you can directly affect are the people that are around you in your own world. I mean, but for my story though, it was kind of like when I became awake and realized that I wanted to become better. I before that though, I mean, I didn't know. I just was content with my career, and I was going on cruise control, and I had no clue. I thought that, I was doing the right things. I thought that this was the mountain, right? I thought I was on top of the mountain. I stayed here until 30 years and that I reached retirement age, and then I would go on to a different part of my life, different chapter. And that's when I would start being really happy, right? The golden years. But it wasn't like that. I had this like spark inside of me that changed. It was like there's more to life. There's more to life than what you're doing right now. and little things started changing for me. It was like, I don't know. I mean, I became Catholic. And that kind of like changed my mind a little bit too, my mindset, because it was like something that I didn't imagine myself doing. Like I didn't think that I could do that. And I did it. It kind of snowballed effect into a larger, more things happening for me. But that awakeness, like it just kind of appeared for me. Like I wasn't looking for it and I wasn't expecting it. It just kind of happened, and then it snowballed into this today. The podcast, my brand, everything that goes underneath that umbrella. But maybe I'm just a special case. I don't know, but I feel like by portraying my story to others and talking with you today and hearing your vibration and hearing your story, others will listen to this, and it might push them. It might be that tipping point where they're like, you know what, maybe I can change as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why we do what we do, right? I often hear people say, if this only changes one person, fuck that. Like, I don't want this just to change one person. I hope this changes, heaps of people, dozens and dozens and dozens, hundreds and thousands of people, right? So putting it out to the world that, if this only helps one person, for me, it's like, I want this to help dozens of you listening here. I want 80% of your audience who listen to this to have some connection, and hence why, something important to talk about, I think, which sort of ties into this concept of sharing a story. Because at the end of the day, a story is a story unless you can derive real solid lessons and outcomes and tangible sort of realities from it. So, for example, when I share my story, it's not just my story. It's what pieces of wisdom did I pick up? Like that story that I shared with you about being prepared. Like my entry into this apprenticeship. There's, when I tell the longer version of that, I could run an entire day workshop just on that story and all the pieces of the puzzle. And because a lot of people, how they become woken, right, is you might listen to something a couple of hundred times and you don't get the message, but someone else says it, right? Like my wife, right? She'll come to me one day and she goes, I was listening to this podcast and blah, and they said this. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, fuck, I'm sure I've said that like 50 times, but I'm not going to say. I'm like, well, that's amazing. That's awesome. It come from a different perspective, right? So how you become more woke, and I think your question earlier was how, if you're a coach and you're wanting to get in this and help people, you got to be obsessed with helping yourself first. You've got to read the literature. You've got to understand the literature. It's not a matter of, I've read 100 books. It's like, who gives a fuck about 100 books? What have you learned from those 100 books? What have you implemented? What have you taken action on? What have you observed out there in the world based off these philosophies and studies and so on and so forth, right? So you've really got to, because there's a difference of, I just want to, motivate people. There's a difference of that. When I seen, I'm not sure if you've heard, but he'd probably come on your show. I could help you out. Dr. John DeMartini, right?
Yeah.
One of the most intelligent people I've ever come across. And that guy consumes literature like it's going out of fashion, right? But I went to his event many, many years ago, first time, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I left the event and I was confused. I was like, oh, wait on a minute. I've been to Tony Robbins and I've been to a lot of and I know he's not just a motivational speaker, but I've been to a lot of events at that time, and I left his event just feeling something different. And I didn't feel motivated. I felt internally, intrinsically inspired to take action, because the way in which the message landed was like I'd never heard before. And this is a guy who is obsessed with helping people. He travels 300 and something days of the year, right? That is an obsessed human being about achieving it. Now, there's a difference of having an affinity to go, you know what, I'd love to run a coaching company and a business and help and change people's lives, but yet you're only wanting $100,000 a year or a couple $100,000 a year, and you want to help. The reality, the commercial reality of it doesn't line up with this potential vision that you have in your mind. Like, if you really want to go and serve people, you will serve yourself harder and faster than you could ever imagine. You'll become curious. You'll reach out to people. You'll have dialogues. Like I sent a message to a mate last night. I said, here's a topic of our next our next conversation, right? So I was listening to a podcast and I was like, okay, I haven't really heard that before. And it was panpsychism, right? And I'm like, what the fuck is panpsychism? So I'm Googling this, and it's all about, everything has consciousness and so on and so forth. So it's a pretty deep, thinking topic. But for me, I'm personally obsessed about finding out more and more and more about us humans and how it ticks in this bloody simulation or whatever it is that we're living, right? So that's why it's easier for me to be able to share my message and have an impact on people, because I truly believe it. Like, I truly desire it, right? So, and that's the difference. Is if someone's listening to this and they want to be a coach or motivational coach or speaker, and you got to find out what are the motivations behind it, and what are you prepared to do to make it happen.
I love that. What are you prepared to do? Now that what you were describing before, like everything has consciousness, like that's interesting. Like, I just started I don't know if you've heard of him, Paul Selig. He is a channeler, so he has like 8 books right now that he has channeled from the guides, and it basically has changed me spiritually. I don't know about you. I don't know what what you consider spiritual or religion, but for me, it is like right now. I highly recommend you start reading it. Reading his books. He's actually coming on the show next week. But it's kind of the same concept. Like we are. Oh man, it's so like. We're so short on time. I cannot start unpacking this right now.
Yeah, I probably opened a can of worms.
Oh man, I so want to talk about this, but the consciousness stuff, right? Like, I feel like I can get with that. I mean, but that's something new to you, right? That's a new belief system. Like, how do you go?
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, continue the question.
No, go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say about that. Like,
Yes, like. And this goes back to the concept. I love not knowing things, because then it shows me that there's things to know. Like panpsychism. Now, I'd never heard the word itself. However, I've had conversations around, I've had a lot of conversations around consciousness and what does that even mean. But to look at it and even to challenge your mind without dismissing it straight away. And that's another really big factor of how you can achieve a lot more in life, is being open to ideas, right? So panpsychism is literally the doctrine, or it's the belief that every single thing material, no matter how small, like a plastic cup or a light bulb, has an element of individual consciousness. Now, of course, you're going to go, of course, a light bulb doesn't have consciousness straight away, but you're like, well, hold on a minute, let's unpack that and discuss that and look at that. And sometimes it's when you go down rabbit holes, really enlightening lessons of yourself and the world itself, can really fast track your path of success.
No, I love that. I mean, because Paul, his thing is that everything is God, right? So everything, you can't take that, even the bad stuff, it's all God. Because I told myself I wouldn't do this, but but
maybe that's another show.
That's another show we can do for sure. Right? I mean, seriously, but I mean, like, all right, so I'm gonna change the subject because I can talk to you for hours about that. We're talking about books here and literature
I'd like to see the show notes of the show. It'll be interesting to see how you say what we talked about.
Dude, I could make some shit up. But I love this because this is like authentic to me. This is like this is freestyling. I love these types of shows where we can freestyle and talk about a great amount of shit.
Here's why Jordan Peterson's so popular, right? I'm just assuming you already know Jordan Peterson, right? But I should never assume, but I'd be pretty correct in thinking that you know who he is, right?
Yeah, yep. I love him. I love listening to him on Rogan. Yeah.
And the reason why he's so popular is because he's having conversations that are just not being had, and he just has the ability and the understanding and intelligence to be able to back up a conversation and say things that we want to say, but we can't say because we haven't created that intelligence within ourselves to be able to create the dialogue needed to get that. So
No, I
That's
mean,
why these conversations are so powerful. There'll be people listening to this now going, "Fuck, this is great." I thought we were talking about fast growth business, and which we essentially are, because this has
yeah.
everything to do with fast
Well,
growth business.
my thing is I hate not knowing, right? Like I hate the fact that I don't know certain things, right? Like
Why? Why do you hate it?
I hate it because I feel like I don't know. Maybe hate's the wrong word. I feel like I don't like being ignorant to certain topics because I just feel like I need to be brushed up on that stuff to have conversations like with you, right? So like it's like I can't prepare enough for a certain interview. Like I feel like I'll read your background, I'll do some research, and then I'll start trying to I want to sound educated on a certain topic about what we're going to discuss, and it's like but I shouldn't say I hate it. It intrigues me. I should say that it intrigues me in a positive way because it's like
because I think we're vibing on a good level. One thing I like to do is I'm a bit of a language Nazi in that sense of going, if you're telling yourself you hate it, you're not going to find the right motivation or inspiration to really fast track your level of learning and understanding in that area.
No, you're right. Because once you say you hate it, you automatically it's dead. It's dead. You're not gonna view it in any positive outlook. But I mean, like outside of your book, right now, what other book has inspired you?
What other book has inspired me?
Like what if you had to narrow it down to like one that has been a game changer for you?
Well, geez, that's a hard one to narrow it down to one. What I'll say is probably one that's had probably the quickest impact was I read the E-Myth, and then within a year I had the fastest growing franchise. So if you've read the E-Myth, it's all about the the technician, the manager and entrepreneur, and they talk about franchising is quite a strong narrative within it. So that was quite powerful. The old favorites, how to win friends and influence other people. You can't go past those ones. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Absolutely love it.
Do you believe in like all right? So like my favorite book is The Alchemist, right? And I know a lot of people feel the same way. But do you believe in like omens? Do you believe in signs from God showing you your path?
Look, I am so connected to the Matrix. It's scary. Like, and I talked about this on a podcast a couple of days ago, where I've been trying to articulate this concept around, the Matrix. And when I share stories, I try and share them in such a way that it'll be understood, like in a metaphorical way. That's why The Alchemist is such a powerful book. It's just the metaphor of it is just like, I get it, right? I get it. So when I'm always trying to, increase my craft and level of understanding and ability to be able to create impact. So I'm always trying to articulate it in such a way. And I was, I've got so many stories to wrap into intuition, and it really ties back to the first one where, because I've always felt quite intuitive, like as younger, but I always like neglected it and like, oh, that just felt weird. What's going on there? And, the whole concept around, do you follow your heart? Do you follow your stomach? Do you follow your head? What does it even all mean? Which led me on another path to uncover all of that. But I am a massive believer, and for the sake of time, this short piece will be able to cover it, is there's the throwaway line, right, that everything happens for a reason. You hear it a lot, right? Everything happens for a reason. But there's a difference of being able to say that and go, yeah, I get that. Everything happens for a reason. But actually knowing at your core of your being that is true and there is no other alternate option or no other alternate way of looking at it, it provides such a level of comfort in the way in which you do things, the decisions you make, the outcomes of those decisions, because you can't argue with it. It's like, that was supposed to happen. I was supposed to have that car crash. I was supposed to break my toe at kickboxing training. I was supposed to lose $80,000 on that deal. But when you really, truly know that it's the actual factual reality of life is that everything is played in the right way, you can have the ability to change and pivot and play certain cards at certain times to create a specific outcome, hopefully. but it just gives you this massive sense of peace and harmony and excitement about life.
I love it. Brett Campbell, how can people connect with you?
The best way would just be find me on any of the socials. So Brett Campbell, or you can just visit brettcampbell.net and you can click on the social links there, and that'll send you on a little bit of a goose chase to hunt me down. Always open to, I do my best to get back to messages, so feel free to send a PM, and I'd love to hear what you got out of our conversation, and more importantly, I'd love to hear if you've gotten something, how have you actioned it or applied it to your life or way of thinking.
I love it, man. Brett, I want to say thank you so much for joining the show today. This has been a kick-ass interview. Well, not even an interview, really, more of a conversation, man. You're a good dude, and you're doing great things. And I just want to say I appreciate you, brother.
Mate, I really appreciate that, and looking forward to our conversation down the track on consciousness. Let's do it.
Wow, that was an intense conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Brett, thank you for coming on the show, brother. I really do appreciate it. That was awesome. You were great. And I can't wait to have you come back on the show and hang out and talk about consciousness and the universe. If you want to hear more of this and more from Brett, please reach out to him on social media. You can reach out to me at yoursuperiorself.com, or you can go to Instagram and follow me at tdowns80 and on Twitter at downstrey. Hit me up if you want to hear more about consciousness and my belief system on the universe and why we're here. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I really do appreciate it, and I cannot wait until next week when we can talk more about becoming our superior selves. Guys, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you later.